It was almost the end of Halloween when the doorbell rang for the last time. I remember thinking how strange it was that the sound still startled me. Our house sat on a dead-end street in a cold part of town, and Halloween was never particularly busy. We barely got any trick-or-treaters. Most families seemed to stick to the warmer, busier neighborhoods, leaving our street quiet long before the night was over. That night, my mom and dad had taken my two twin brothers out trick-or-treating. I hadn't made any plans, so my parents had more or less forced me to stay home and answer the door. "Just hand out the candy," my mom had told me. It sounded simple enough. I was sitting in the living room watching television, with the candy bucket resting on a small table beside me. Inside were all the usual Halloween candies, including Butterfingers, the one candy my mom inexplicably bought every single Halloween. The house was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. Then the doorbell rang. I jumped. For a second, I just stared toward the front door. Then I grabbed the orange bucket and walked over. When I opened the door, someone was standing there wearing a scream mask and a robe. He held a pillowcase out toward me. There was something about the sight that made me pause. It was late. Almost everyone had already gone home. And judging from how little candy was in his pillowcase, it didn't look like he'd collected much that night. He was alone, too. For some reason, that made me feel bad for him. So I gave him a bunch of candy. He took it without saying thank you. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear down the street for a moment before closing the door. It was strange, but I didn't think much of it. I returned to the couch, put the candy bucket beside me, and tried to get back into the movie. A few minutes later, the movie ended. I picked up the remote and started surfing through the channels. The television flickered from one station to another, filling the room with brief flashes of voices, music, and static. Then, during one of those brief moments when the television went silent between channels, I heard something. A thud, then a bump. It had come from downstairs. Near the back door, I stopped pressing the remote. For a moment, I just listened. Nothing. I turned the television volume all the way down. Then I got up and walked toward the stairway. And that's when I saw the back door. It was wide open. My stomach dropped. I suddenly remembered that I had forgotten to lock it earlier when I had gone back there. The question that immediately entered my mind was the worst one. Had the sound I heard been the back door opening or closing? And if it had been the door, was someone inside the house? I stood at the top of the stairs, staring down into the dark den. The house suddenly felt completely different. A few minutes earlier, it had been ordinary. Just another quiet Halloween night. The television had been playing. The candy bucket had been sitting beside me. My parents were out with my brothers, and I was waiting for them to come home. Now, every dark corner seemed to contain a possibility. I called down the stairway. "Mom." Nothing. "Dad." Still nothing. Then I called my twins' names. The silence that came back from the den was worse than an answer. I didn't want to go downstairs. Unfortunately, there was no door separating the main floor from the den stairway. The stairs were completely exposed from the living room, which meant there was nowhere I could close myself off and simply pretend nothing was happening. I went back to the couch. The television stayed on, but I kept it muted. The screen cast a faint glow across the living room, and for some reason that little bit of light made me feel safer. I sat there listening. Every few seconds, I found myself looking toward the stairway. Nothing moved. At least, nothing I could see. Time passed. I don't know exactly how long I sat there, but eventually the obvious thought finally occurred to me. Call my parents. I picked up the phone. My mom answered, and I told her what had happened. I explained that I had heard something downstairs and that the back door was open. "I think someone might be down there," I said. My mom tried to reassure me. She told me there was probably nothing to worry about. She said it was likely just my imagination. She and my dad would be home within half an hour. I tried to accept that. "Okay," I said. Then I hung up. The moment the call ended, the house became quiet again. I sat completely still, and then I heard it. Crack. The sound came from the den stairway. It sounded like wood and foundation shifting underneath one of the carpeted steps. My body reacted before my mind could. I froze on the couch. I couldn't move, not even a finger. I stared toward the stairs, waiting for another sound. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then, crack, another step. The sound was unmistakable now. Someone, or something, was putting weight on the stairs. My breathing became shallow. I slowly pushed myself up from the couch, moving as quietly as I possibly could. I didn't know whether whoever was downstairs had heard me. I didn't know if they knew I was alone, and I didn't know how long they had been inside the house. I got into a half-crouched position and began moving toward the front door. One step, then another. I kept my eyes away from the stairway. I was terrified that if I looked directly at it, I would see someone standing there. Then I reached the couch, and as I passed it, the angle changed. I could finally see the stairs clearly. I looked, and someone was there. A scream mask was staring up at me from the stairway. For a moment, my brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. The face was pale and expressionless, frozen into that familiar exaggerated scream. But this wasn't someone standing at the front door asking for candy. This person was inside my house. He was on the stairs, and he had clearly been trying not to be seen. The angle was part of what made it so disturbing. The lighting in the den was dark, and I was looking down toward him from the living room. The mask seemed to appear out of the darkness, almost suspended there. He wasn't moving toward me. He wasn't saying anything. He was simply looking up, watching. I couldn't hear anything except my own breathing. Then he realized I had seen him. The movement was immediate. He turned and went back the other way, disappearing into the darkness of the den. That was the moment everything inside me broke loose. I didn't stop to figure out who he was. I didn't try to confront him. I didn't even check the back door. I ran upstairs. I got into my room and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I called my mom again. This time, I didn't have to convince her that I was frightened. I told her what had happened. I told her about the mask. I told her someone had been on the stairs. And I told her that he had disappeared back into the den. Whatever plans my parents had for the rest of the night ended immediately. They cut their trip short and came home. Until then, I stayed inside my locked room. Every sound made me look toward the door. A floorboard shifting. Something outside. The faint noise of the house settling. I couldn't tell which sounds were normal anymore. The hardest part was knowing that the person had been inside the house while I was downstairs. He had been close enough to see me, close enough to hear me, and there was no way of knowing how long he had been there. The image of that mask kept replaying in my mind. The first time I had seen it, I had opened the front door and handed the person candy. I had thought he was just another lonely trick-or-treater at the end of Halloween. I had never considered that he might already have another way into the house. Now I was sitting behind a locked bedroom door, waiting for my parents to return, wondering whether the person behind that mask was still somewhere downstairs. When my parents finally arrived, I didn't feel safe immediately. I waited until I heard them come inside. Then I heard their voices. Only after I knew they were actually home did I leave my room. My dad and I went downstairs together. The den looked completely different with him beside me. The darkness was still there, but it didn't have the same power over me anymore. We checked everything. Every closet, every room, every place where someone could have hidden. We searched the den carefully, looking for any sign that the person in the scream mask was still inside. There was nothing. No one was there. The house was empty. Eventually, we had to accept that the person had gotten out somehow. The most obvious explanation was the back door. I had forgotten to lock it. That single mistake had apparently been enough. The person I had seen at the front door may have simply been a stranger in a scream mask asking for candy. But somewhere after that, he had apparently made his way into the house through the unlocked back door. And once inside, he had stayed hidden. That was the part one couldn't stop thinking about. While I was sitting on the couch watching television, someone was somewhere downstairs. I had no idea. I had even called down the stairs. I had called for my parents. I had called for my brothers. And whoever was hiding down there had heard me. Yet he didn't answer. He waited. Then he started coming up the stairs. The cracks in the wooden steps were the only warning I got. If I hadn't heard them, I might have remained on that couch. If I hadn't turned the television down, I might never have noticed. And if I hadn't walked toward the front door at exactly the right moment, I might never have seen the mask staring back at me. There was no explanation for why he went back into the darkness after I saw him. Maybe he realized he had been discovered. Maybe he was trying to get away. Or maybe he simply didn't want me to know where he was. I never found out. We never found the person. There was no dramatic confrontation. No final explanation. Just an empty house after a terrifying realization. Someone had apparently entered through our unlocked back door and moved through the house while I was inside. And for several minutes, I had been completely unaware that I wasn't alone. The strange thing about the night is how ordinary everything had seemed at first. My parents had taken my twin brothers trick-or-treating. I had stayed home because I didn't have plans. The neighborhood was quiet because we lived on a dead-end street where hardly anyone came for Halloween. I was watching television with a bucket of candy beside me. Then the doorbell rang. A person in a scream mask stood outside with a pillow sack. I gave him candy. He walked away. At the time, that was the entire story. Or at least, that's what I thought. Only later did I understand how important that brief encounter might have been. Because not long afterward, I heard a noise downstairs. The back door was open. Then I heard the stairs. And finally, I saw that same scream mask looking up at me from inside my house. There is something especially disturbing about realizing that a stranger has been inside your home while you were completely unaware. A home is supposed to be the place where you can let your guard down. You expect the walls to separate you from the outside world. You expect locked doors to mean something. That night, I learned how quickly that sense of safety can disappear. My parents searched the house and found nobody. Eventually, the person was simply gone. I don't know exactly when he entered. I don't know how long he stayed downstairs. I don't know why he came upstairs. And I don't know what he would have done if I hadn't seen him. Those questions have no satisfying answers. What I do know is that the back door had been left unlocked. And that was enough. The entire incident could have been prevented by something as simple as turning a lock. That's the part that stayed with me. Not the Halloween decorations. Not the empty street. Not even the scream mask itself. It was the realization that someone had apparently helped himself into our house because I had forgotten to secure the door. So the moral of the story is simple. Keep your doors locked, especially when you're home alone. Because sometimes the most frightening thing isn't something supernatural hiding in the